All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the last session of the day. Thank you for choosing the G Suite Life. If I haven't seen you this morning, my name is Karen. If you are able, please consider leaving your video on for this next hour, just because it's a little bit more engaging and fun for all of us to kind of see each other's expressions as we work through the various activities. Your microphones are muted by default, but if you have questions, comments at any time, please feel free to interrupt me. Or drop your question in the chat. You don't have to wait all the way until the end. So with that, let's hop right into it, our last session of the day. So the goal is essentially to take a look at what are some creative ways we can use some of the tools that are in Google G Suite, recently renamed to Google Workspace, to enhance student learning. I'll give you guys a few examples to play with, and then hopefully give you guys a chance to see how could you fit it into your classroom, whether it's for face-to-face learning or virtual, flipped learning, lots of different uses that you could potentially have. Homework unofficially is to take a tool from today's session, and you can either use the template provided or start from scratch, but essentially create something new for yourself or for your students using one of the tools that we discussed during this session. If you haven't accessed the Digital Commons download link yet, so this is available for all the sessions, I did include a downloadable copy for all the templates, as well as a video tutorial in the session materials, so you can access that on the Institute Day website. Okay. Schedule for today. So we're going to look at 3 different tools. Obviously, there's no way I can cover all of Google G Suite in an hour. And so I decided to spotlight 3 different examples. So we're going to start with using Google Jamboard and doing a Mad Libs activity with it. We're going to look at Google Slides and how you can use it for a card sort or drag and drop activity. And the last one is my favorite. We're going to look at how can you customize a Google Sheets document to make a customizable pixel art activity. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to drop a link in the chat momentarily, but we're going to start by opening up the same Jamboard. So bear that in mind. Everyone is going to be looking at the exact same document. All right, and I will leave these directions up. What I will have you do, you'll see a bunch of sticky notes on the screen. Just look at something that pops out to you. All right, and then what I want you to pick one, double click on it, and then just replace the text, and then click save. And it'll pop back into place. Don't move anything else around. All right. So I will leave these directions up. I will put the link in here so that everyone can access the same document. You'll see a bunch of different colored sticky notes. Again, whichever one calls out to you, double click on it, change the text, then click save. And I believe it works so that everyone can see if you're selecting something. So, and I guess I should tell you guys, as with students as well, please keep this G-rated. Thank you guys. I think that's all of them. Let me check. All right, so bear with me. Things might move a little bit, but I'm gonna hope that this doesn't mess anything up. All right, I'm gonna scooch them a little bit just because sometimes, let's see, there we go. All right, are we all looking at the same thing with the image? Can I have a volunteer to just read our beautiful story that we've created together?
I can do it.
Thank you.
Or at least I'm going to try.
All right, thank you. I know they kind of move around a little bit, but go ahead, Anne.
All right. Hi, this is Karen Yee speaking to you from Broadcasting Banana at the Funny Forum. In case you swam in late, the score between the Los Angeles Seeds and the Boston Sheep is a squeaker, 141-7. This is the most fabulous game these ecstatic eyes have seen in years. Okay, timeout's over. Los Angeles brings in the ball at mid-pencil. Liz dribbles down the chicken, fakes the defender out of his dog, and shoots a 13-handed shot. It goes right out of the, this is where it rolls off my screen. It goes right out of the ball, something. The game is over as the sleeping bag goes off.
All right, thank you. Yeah, real silly, right? Thank you guys for partaking in that. All right, now, obviously this is only one of many uses for Jamboard. I will show you how to set this up, but if you look on the left-hand side, the fourth icon down lets you create a sticky note, right? And the nice thing is you can drag them all over, you can have different colors, you can change the text, right? It's a lot simpler sometimes than ripping off like an entire stack of Post-it notes, right? And then you'll notice, and you guys are welcome to click on your copy as well, if you try to do anything with the text, like where it says, hi, this is blank speaking to you from, you can't do anything to it. The only thing you can click on are these sticky notes, right? But the background where the text is, you're welcome to try, but you can't do anything with it, right? And that's one of the things that in a lot of the tools we'll look at today, we're taking advantage of, is trying to lock the background, okay? So thank you. I love a good Mad Libs to kind of liven up the afternoon. Let me go back to let me make sure I'm sharing the correct screen right now. Okay, so for the sake of hoping that my computer did not jam while trying to show you guys how to do this, I'm gonna play, it's a short clip and you can download it later as well. Essentially a tutorial of how do you set it up, and then we'll talk about what are some other things you can do with Jamboard as well.
Let's take a look at how you can create your own Google Jamboard Mad Libs activity. The first thing you'll want to do is to find a fun and appropriate Mad Libs to use. Next, open a new Google Slides or PowerPoint presentation. Type out the text for the Mad Libs and leave spaces for the words that you will ask students to contribute. Adjust the font and spacing so that the text will take up most of the slide. When you're done, save the slide as an image. Next, open a new Google Jamboard and set the saved image as the background. Add sticky notes to place over where the blank spaces are on the Mad Libs text. When you're done, click on Set Background and change it back to the blank default option. Next, give editing access to your students. When everyone opens the same Jamboard, have students pick one sticky note, double-click on it, replace the text, and then click Save. Make sure they do not move any of the sticky notes. When all the words have been filled out, change the background to the Mad Libs image. Have fun as you read your class's creation.
All right, I know that video also had a lot of sped up moments, but again, you can download the video tutorial under the session materials. And this particular one that I have up is from when I did this last year. All right. So obviously, you know, a lot of us being in math and science, you're not necessarily going to do a Mad Libs in your class. You could do a science themed Mad Libs, just something to liven things up.
Let's take a look.
Some other things you can use Jamboard for. You'll notice that you can, there's like a marker tool where you can change the marker. There's a shapes tool. There's a text tool. So you can also use it if you wanted to give your students any sort of reading material to highlight or annotate. You can create a graphic organizer using Jamboard. You can have a pros and cons discussion where, you know, you just split the screen in half and have them put sticky notes, pros, cons, etc. A good website that has more templates and ideas, which is where I got the Mad Libs idea from. It's called ditchthattextbook.com /Jamboard. And I believe there's like 20 different templates and ideas. There was like a picture book idea, different gallery walks. So a bunch of different things that you can use Jamboard for. And again, you can download today's template. It'll force you to make a copy. So whatever we did today, it'll just disappear with me, but it'll make you force copy a clean one, and then you can download the video tutorial as well. Okay. Next, so this one is going to be a little bit more independent. So I'm going to have you guys go to a different bit.ly link, and it will prompt you to make a copy of the document. I did it this way just so that whatever you guys decide to do doesn't mess up somebody else's copy. When you give this to students, you're welcome to have multiple students work on the same copy of the document. I included 4 different sorting exercise examples. I tried to have a variety of math and science themes, so just pick 1 or 2 that seem the most relevant to your teaching area. And then the directions on the slide are fairly simple, and then you just have to move around the cards to the appropriate places. One tip that I've highlighted on here is to click on the arrow on that menu bar on the bottom left to make it go away, and that'll give you a bigger screen space to kind of see what you're working with. All right, so come on, chat, where'd you go? Let me go ahead and drop in. That should work for everybody. It'll say, would you like to make a copy of math and science card sorts? And I'm just going to give everybody a few moments to kind of look through the different options available. And again, just pick 1 or 2 that seem to be the most relevant to your teaching area. And remember, you can hide, if you hover over it, it says hide film strip by clicking on that left arrow, bottom left-hand corner. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen for the copy that I have. It is totally possible that some of your cards are in different locations, and that is okay. So the first one, the directions were to simply stack the cards from smallest to largest value, and that anything on top of each other are considered equivalent. So this was looking at fractions, different ways of looking at fractions. If you look at the one that's 1/2, for example, right, it shows how 1/2 and 4/8 are equivalent. So this is a kind of chronological organization task, but also sorting by things that are the same value, even though they look different, right? So if you chose to do this one, this is what this looks like. The other one was similar in that it had you organize in order, but you also had to solve some algebraic equations if you chose to do this one. So you kind of had to lay them all out. And again, this is a little bit easier if you have the cards to manipulate by hand. But once you kind of undo all the cards and sort them out in front of you, it's kind of easy to pick out that 0M would be the smallest and 2M or 2X, whatever you want to call it, is the largest, and kind of go from there to figure out what is the value of M and then what is the numerical answer to all the other algebraic expressions. So it's another way of looking at equivalent statements, but with some algebraic skills. This one, if you're in my morning session, you've seen a sample of, but it's essentially a card sort for vocabulary when introducing a new concept. So this particular one had you sort items based on whether you think it is matter or not matter, and then there's a category for unsure. And essentially, once you have that, you can encourage students to kind of come up with their own working definition of what they think matter is based on whatever they put in that category. You can do this for a lot of other things that involve categorical sorting. So living versus non-living things, or if you want to use abiotic or biotic factors, stuff like that. Anything that you would normally do a vocab sort for would be a good fit for this one. And Anne, I saw you liked the last one. It asked you to match the data set on each data card with a graph card that accurately displays the data. And I do apologize. I tried my best to make this as large as possible. That's the tricky thing once you try to put more information on an image file. You can zoom in on Google Slides. It's just kind of annoying because then you kind of have to like shift yourself around. But there's a lot of different things you can do with this activity once students are done with it, right? You'll notice there are 4 different types of graphs that I have displayed here. So you can have students look at, okay, what type of data tends to be represented in a pie chart versus a scatter plot versus a bar graph? You know, what are some things that are missing on these graphs, for example? How did they match up the data set, etc.? If you just looked at the graph, would you know what information it's telling you? There's a lot of different things you can kind of jump off of with something like this. All right. And now let me go back to my other screen. So I'll show you how to set these up. And again, if it's too fast or you need to be able to pause it in order to create your own, here is a short tutorial video, and then we're going to get to my favorite one.
Let's take a look at how you can create your own Google Slides card sort activity. The first thing you'll want to do is open a new Google Slides presentation. Click on Layout in the toolbar and set it to blank. There are various ways to set up the background image you want students to sort the cards on. For a matching or clothesline activity, you can make gray boxes to create drop zones. Do this by going to Insert, then Shape and Rectangle and draw the box on your screen. To make boxes of a specific size, you can go to Format Options and set it to a desired width and height. If you want to make a dotted border, select the box and then click Border Dash to select a pattern. Now that you have the box, you can copy and paste it as many times as you like and drag them to where you want on the screen. If you want to create columns or a grid for students to sort cards into categories, go to Insert, then Table, and choose the desired table size. Resize as necessary. Insert text boxes for labeling and including directions. You may also consider changing the background to a different color. You can create templates for different activities on the same Google Slides presentation. When you're done, go to File and Download to save each slide as an image file. Next, open a new Google Slides presentation and again set the layout to blank. Click on Background in the toolbar and set the saved image as the background. Doing it this way makes it so that if you click anywhere on the slide, you cannot change anything about the image. The next thing you'll want to do is to insert or copy pictures of the cards you want students to interact with into the margin. If you have individual image files of the cards, you can do this by using the Insert Image function. Another alternative is to use a screen snipping tool, then copy and paste each image onto the slide. Adjust the size of the cards as necessary. When you're done, change the share settings to anyone with link can view and make copies for your students. And that's it. I hope you and your students have fun with Google Slides card sort activities.
All right, I do want to address some things that came up in the chat. There's obviously a lot of different ways you can do this. One question was if you could have all the cards on one slide and then kind of have them essentially sort them onto a different slide just so that they can see all the cards at once. And you totally can, especially if you have like 30 different cards that you want to deal with. One thing I do like a lot about Google Slides is that if you cut an image and then paste it onto another slide, it'll show up in that exact same location. So you can totally put in a directions slide and just tell them, hey, everything that you're sorting is on slide number 2. Please paste them onto the final image on slide number 4 or whatever, wherever it is that you have it, right? You can also definitely go to, I think it's File Page Setup, where you can kind of change the size of the page that you're working with. So if you, I think when you open it now, the default setting is standard widescreen. You can put in actual inches if you wanted to, but you can definitely mess with it in there. Last thing I'll point out is that pretty much anything that you would normally do as a card sort activity, you can change it into a digital format if you wanted to. And if you have a PDF copy of cards that you normally print out, what I did is, like for the data cards, I had a PDF copy and I did the snip screen. So, because like they all come like I think 8 cards printed on a slide, and so it's kind of annoying to try to download a separate image file for all of them. So I just opened it, snip, paste, done. Same thing goes if you find a worksheet online that you like, the snip tool, and then you can crop it to kind of fit your needs. All right. And I know like in-person card sorts are definitely a little bit more fruitful. You have more room to work with. I would say this is an option for obviously for students at home, but also if you wanted students to create some kind of digital portfolio. I know some schools are looking at doing that, or even if it's like a alternative assignment where they have to sort it out and explain to you how they did it. It's kind of a nice way to have a permanent things instead of having students sort out things on their desks and then the next class comes in and you have to clean up. So if you are using it as like a formative assessment tool where students have to upload a copy of what they did, it is a nice tool to have. Just a quick recap, the different card sort activities that I had you guys look at. So you can do anything with like that involves matching or pairing, chronological organization, sorting into categories, and the last thing I mentioned is some type of formative assessment. All right, sorry about that. I don't know why I went backwards. Okay. The last one, I'm going to drop the link in the chat momentarily. It will also prompt you to make your own copy. Just like with the slides presentation, if you wanted students to work on this in pairs or in groups, you can totally have them work on the same document. So it'll prompt you to make a copy, and your task is to answer the 10 riddles, yes, riddles that are on the screen. And you will know if you got the answer correct if you see something pop up on the Google Sheets. It'll be colorful. So if nothing happens after you type in the answer, then you might have gotten it wrong, okay? You don't have to do them in order. So it's not like, you have to answer question 1 before you answer question 2 or anything like that. So I will just give everyone a few minutes to kind of play with it on their own. If you need a hint, feel free to holler, feel free to chat me. There's no shame in wanting some help or just kind of trying every combination that you think is possible, but it is still not working. So let me put the last one in here. And it should prompt you to make a copy of Pixel Art Riddle is what everyone will be looking at. And again, feel free to chat me, holler at me if you need a hint. All right, so here's my completed copy. I don't know when everybody realized that Baby Yoda was going to show up on your screen. I tried to pick riddles just because obviously we're a mixed group in here. But obviously, if you were to do this for your own class, you can make the questions essentially what you would put on a quiz review sheet, whatever it is that you're doing, right? You can make it more content specific. You'll notice that for the answers, you can put in numerical values or words. However, if you try to do anything super complicated, like multiple words or phrases or equations, that's when I'm gonna say maybe try to do a fill in the blank. So try to limit what the answer input is to just one item. But yeah, I think my favorite one on here that I had to look up was Chicago, 3/7 chicken, 2/3 cat, and 2/4 goat. That one was probably the one that stumped me the most. All right. On your copy, you'll also notice on the bottom, so this tab says riddles. In the sandbox column, which I'll go over in a second as well, you'll notice that I have a copy for you to play with as well, if you wanted to copy an emoji to work with. So I'll tell you right now that the creation of these, the most time-intensive part is honestly making the image and coding it. However, in the tutorial that I'm about to show you, I'm going to show you how you can make it reusable so that if you wanted to use the same image for different assignments, it's pretty easy to just change the answers that are tied to it. All right, so let's go back to our final one and we'll talk about different uses for this as well.
Let's take a look at how you can create your own Google Sheets pixel art activity. The first thing you'll want to do is to open a new Google Sheet. I suggest leaving the top 2 rows blank so you have room for notes or directions. Label the first 2 columns question number and answer. Next, click column D, then hold down the Shift and Control key and hit the right arrow on the keyboard. Right-click and select Resize columns D through Z and enter 21 for the new column width. This turns the columns into more of a square shape, which we will use to make our drawing. The easiest way to do this is to search for an existing pixel art pattern to use as a reference. Using the reference image, select the boxes on the Google Sheet that should be the same color by holding down the Control key while clicking on them. Then, click on Fill Color in the toolbar and select the appropriate color, in this case, black. Repeat this process for the other boxes that should be black. The remaining blank boxes outside the glasses should be yellow, so hold down the Control key while selecting these and set the fill color as yellow. Once you have your pixel art image, type in your questions and answer key. I'll go ahead and leave these generic by just typing in question numbers and letters for multiple choice answers. Next, copy the columns with the questions and answers onto a second sheet. Then, hide the sheet. Next, we have to format our image. Randomly select several boxes of the same color by holding down the Control key as you click the boxes. Then, go to Format in the menu and select Conditional Formatting. Under Format Rule, select Custom Formula Is and enter the following. We are entering it this way since the answer to question 1 is in cell B4 on sheet number 2. Finally, set the corresponding color under Formatting Style, in this case, yellow. After you click Done, the conditionally formatted boxes should still be highlighted. Go to Fill Color and hit Reset and then delete the answer to question 1 from the current sheet. This will show you if you have formatted it correctly, as well as keep track of which ones have been completed. Repeat this process for the remaining questions. Randomly select several boxes of the same color, go to Format and select Conditional Formatting. Under Format Rule, the only thing you have to change under the custom formula is the cell where the answer to your question is. You can check that you have formatted everything correctly by typing in the answers to see if colored boxes show up. To share this Google Sheet, change the share settings to Anyone with link can view and make the appropriate number of copies. And that's it! I hope you and your students have fun with Google Sheet pixel art.
All right, couple things I'll talk about in here. So you'll notice the advice that I gave, because there are several ways you can conditionally format a Google Sheet. The advice I gave was to copy your answers onto a second sheet and then hide it. And then that way you can tie your answers to just whatever is on sheet number 2 in cell B4, and it lines up with whatever's on the sheet that students see. Now, just because you hide it from view doesn't mean that students can't find it. So I will just tell you that outright. So if you are going to use this as an activity, I would definitely use it as, a participation grade, a quiz review, not for an actual test, just because they can dig through it and find the answers. Another benefit of hiding your answers on a separate sheet is that if you wanted to use, let's say, this emoji one for a different assignment, you just have to change the answers. You can make a copy of the document, and then you can just change whatever answers are on sheet 2. And then you don't have to do anything else with the conditional formatting. So that's a nice way of doing it that way, instead of setting it as conditional format answer equals 12 or something like that, because then you have to go through all of them and change just that one part of the code. But if you tie the answers to a separate sheet, you just have to reference that sheet and make sure you change the answers. Another piece of advice I'll give you, and I think I did it on the copy I shared with you, even on the hidden sheet, I changed the font so that it was white. So you'd have to really click around. Obviously, if you click on it, you can see the answer, but just any any little tip or trick to kind of discourage students from digging around for those answers. Obviously, they can still find it if they really tried, but trying just to make it less noticeable on first glance and really encouraging them to just have fun and see what they can do with the pixel art. Different places you can use it, right? So definitely a good place to practice vocabulary, any kind of fact fluency, dates, inventions, calculations, right? Because you can put in mathematical or numerical answers. Like I said, you can have students do this individually or in groups. It's a great formative assessment tool, as well as for quiz or test review. Anything that the answer choice might be a little bit too complicated for them to type out in there. If you have it in multiple choice format, right, you can just have them type in the answers A, B, C, D, and it could just be referencing a separate homework assignment document that you already have. All right. One thing that I did not include in here, but just so that you guys are aware, there is a wonderful Facebook group dedicated to making and sharing these, and it's called Mystery Pixel Art for Math and Science, I believe. It's a wonderful teacher support group on Facebook, and people are very generous with sharing ones that they have coded, as well as kind of just like being like, hey, here's another idea. There's a lot of different ways and different layers of complexity to making these pixel art activities. So if you are interested in using them, I definitely recommend checking out that Facebook group. People are very creative and generous with what they have. And I've seen a lot of different types of subject areas as well. And again, it's specifically for math and science. All right. And that's it. I hope there's something from this G suite of tools that you find useful, whether it's for an individual assignment, whether it's for formative assessment, anything like that. I definitely encourage you to look at pixel art or the Google Slides as a form of group work and formative assessment, just to kind of shake things up every now and then. But yeah, that essentially ends our day. Thank you guys very much for being here. I know it's a long day of Zoom. Hopefully this has been useful for you guys. And yeah, I will drop the links for the eval forms in here as well. You can access our website for other stuff if you're interested. And my contact email is listed here as well. And just a reminder again, if you want to download any of the templates or view the video tutorials and you don't want to dig back into this recording, you can already access that under the session materials for this session. All right.